Good afternoon and welcome to Great Business Plans and How to Write Yours. I've got a few people in here who've been part of previous webinars that we're doing. Welcome again, Michael. Welcome, Julia, and welcome to the team from Caillou Superfoods in the Northern Territory. It's great to have you on board, and we'll have a few more people join us as this gets underway. My apologies to those of you who booked this earlier in the week. I wasn't very well, so I had to put that one back a bit. I didn't have a great start to the week, so hopefully my throat holds up now. Thankfully, no corona. I've had to swab my nose, so none of that for now. So thank you again for joining us. We're going to get underway with something that's probably a little bit different to those who are used to attending my webinars that I would look into. And this is the process of writing a very formal piece of documentation, I suppose. But the business plan doesn't have to necessarily be that. Though it is very important to have a plan, because as this very fine poet, journalist, and entrepreneur of the early 20th century said, a goal without a plan is pretty much just a wish. And we know that very well, that if you have an idea in your head, if you don't have a plan to move forward, it just remains as this idea, a wish, if you like, that never really goes anywhere. Today is brought to you by Business Station and the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program. It is an Australian government initiative through Oz Industry. So thank you to them, as well as in Brisbane and Queensland, Regional Development Australia presenting that, and in the Northern Territory, Treaty Business Consulting. This will be recorded and it will be available for you to watch again at the YouTube station, the YouTube channel of Business Station. You just go to YouTube, type in Business Station, and you'll be able to find it there. And subscribe to. There's all these C19 Biz Booster webinars will be available for you to view there anytime you like. So, who is today for? It's for those new businesses who want to set a solid direction moving forward, but good news, if you've already got underway, it's also for you too, for existing businesses who realize they don't really have a solid plan moving forward and they'd like to kind of develop that. The business plan has a lot of mystique and a lot of formality around it. Hopefully we'll remove some of that, or at least explain what it means, what it does, what it's for, and how it works. What you're going to learn today is the information you need to include in a business plan. We're going to look at a section by section guide to those things you have to put in there, so you'll know what each one of them means. We're going to help you out with formatting how your business plan is the most readable and compelling that it possibly can be. And a lot of that will be through some of the examples of some really good business plans that we've got that have been engineered by the guys at startups.com. Bit about me, if you haven't come across me before, although I think pretty much everyone here has. I'm a digital business advisor with Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory, also a digital marketing associate, media planner, and certified lead trainer with Facebook Australia and New Zealand. And my background is in business information systems through the University of New South Wales. Although if you go back another 15 years before that, I actually studied to become a GP, would you believe? And wasn't a particularly good one. I'm a contributor also to Startups University and Lean Startup Labs, who are co-presenters with us today. So some of the material you're getting here is some of the stuff that I've contributed to Startups University and Lean Startup Labs as well. So quite simply, a business plan is a roadmap, pretty detailed one, of your business. It's a document that's being written to communicate to your readers and your potential investors, if there's some of those out there, what your business goals are and the steps you plan on taking to achieve those business goals. So it can be interpreted as quite an important and formal document, but really, if you think of it in terms of it's a roadmap of where your business is and where it's going. It's communicated specifically often to investors, people who are going to invest in your business, but it can be things like, looking for a business loan, or just communicating to others who you want to have as allies to your business. And then outlines the steps forward. So not just where you're from, where you're at, but also what your plan is moving forward. After all, it's a business plan, not a business report. What a business plan isn't is that aha moment or an idea. It's not where you load down, oh, this is the idea I've got, I'm going to put this on paper. It's a lot more forward thinking that. It's a lot more about moving into the future of where that aha moment is. So it's not the moment itself, it's the process you're going to go through to get to the realization, the execution of that big idea you've got. So what exactly is a business plan? It's about answering questions about your business, specifically the whys and the hows, and I'll break those down a bit here because the whys and the hows are why this idea, why this business, why now? Why are we doing this now? Why didn't we do this 5 years ago? Why don't we do this in 5 years' time? Why you are the one who's going to deliver that. And then the how is how are you going to make the money? How are you going to get the customers? And how are you going to grow the business beyond what it is as basically an idea in the back of your head? So think about it as, why is this particular business necessary now? And why are you the one to deliver it? And then how are you going to move forward with making money? How are you going to attract customers to buy what it is that you're proposing? And how are you then going to continue that growth into the future? Not just to get the first, couple of $100,000, but what's your big plan moving forward? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? And in that process, you're going to show that your business has the right product or service for the right market at the right time. But it's going to be delivered by the right team, but also in terms of, the right strategy for that team to be able to deliver this to you. It's about convincing someone outside your business. Usually, sometimes it's internal too. It could be a business partner even, that you have the right idea for the right product into the right kind of people, the right customers at the right time in their journey. And you've got the right team, even if that team is just yourself, and you've got the right plan moving forward. So it's as much a sales document as I guess a sales pitch would be, but this is a lot more specific. This is going into a lot more of the nuts and bolts about how you're going to do all that. So why do you need a business plan? Well, you need to optimize your strategies. And by that, we mean that you need to, if you know where you want to go, you need to be able to refine that into how am I going to get there? Why am I going to get there? And what exactly does it look like when I get there? And once you know that stuff, you go from very vague statements such as we want to be in a constant state of growth for the next 5 years, right down to this is how we're going to get to that constant state of growth over 5 years. And then you may actually find that once you refine some of your strategies down that they're not even realistic. So you just get rid of those and you find a new strategy to get that same plan underway. You need to know where you're going just for your own security, I guess. Where are you going in your business? How are you going to work your business? What are the things that are outlining your business? What are the things that are going to come up along the way? And how are you going to address them? And you may be looking for ways that you can get other people to fund your business. So it can be investors, venture funding, or even a loan. And that's the next one too. You may need to secure a business loan. Pretty much all the time, if you go to the bank and ask for a business loan, they will want to see your business plan. Some of the banks are really good that help you build it into a format that's understandable, but the whole process moves a whole lot quicker when you've got one ready to go. You may want to make some alliances with other businesses, for instance, suppliers who may be part of the supply chain of the product you're wanting to present, or they could be alliances with other people who do similar things to what you do. The idea here is to produce something that says to them, yes, I do want to be on board with you, whether it's someone giving you money for that, or it's someone aligning with your idea and helping you out with it, even if not for a money thing. And it also prepares you for that point where you may want to sell your business. Quite often, we don't set up businesses just because we're passionate about a product. We quite often set up a business with the idea in mind that either we're going to have to hand it over to someone else, like our kids, or we're going to want to sell it eventually and sail away into the sunset and retire on a deserted island off Fiji. That's not my dream, by the way. There's 3 different kinds of business plans you can look at. There's the standard one, which is what we're largely going to look at today. There's the one pager, which is kind of like an overview. We'll dig down a little bit deeper into that one, but not too deep. And then there is the internal business plan. So to break those down, the standard business plan is used when you're looking for funding or a loan. It's pretty much the one that they expect at banks and investors expect. It's for external people, not really for people within your business or within your company. It's very fine-tuned and it's very focused in on each of the ideas you need to be able to get across to someone. And it's the most common type of business plan out there. This is the one when people talk about a business plan that they're usually talking about. The one pager is what we call the TLDR, too long didn't read. It's a very executive overview. It's when you're very early in the process of seeking funding, or you're very early in the process of getting the idea out to other people for feedback. There's not too much detail. You're not giving away too many of your secrets and your secret sauce. You're very much at that time where you're looking just for some basic feedback. The one-page business plan can be really good for when you first see investors, but not when they're going into when they know they're definitely interested. That's when you pull out the full business plan. And the internal one's usually where you're setting your own goals internally and trying to reach them. So it can be fairly detailed, because it's really about what you want to, within your business, achieve. So that could be stuff like, it might be a goal to increase the floor size of our office by 22% over the next 5 years. Now, that doesn't make a difference to the investors. This is an internal thing with internal money that you may be doing. It could be, I want to replace this piece of machinery within 2 years. That doesn't necessarily have to be stated in your business plan, although once someone comes on board and has enough interest, you may want to add some of that detail. This could be right down to, in my business plan, I want to take my employees undergoing significant personal development training. That doesn't have to go outside of your business plan. That's a very internal matter. So it's a very different kind of business plan, pretty much for only your eyes, or the eyes of you and your senior managers, if you've got a structure like that. So we're going to concentrate on the standard business plan, because that's the one that everyone's really talking about when they think of what a business plan is. This is the one the bank's going to ask you for. This is the one the investors are going to look for. This is the one that when you rock up to the Business Enterprise Center or any of those assistance services, they're going to say, have you got a business plan? And you can go, oh boy, yes, I do. Here it is. And you slap it down in front of them. How that all works is based on a whole lot of sections. So this gets a little bit cerebral. It gets a little bit defined. So we're looking at an executive summary, being that overview of the whole thing. It's pretty much one sentence that covers each one of the points we're going to go down on here. So it's not really, a highly descriptive area. It's the overview of what you're hoping to achieve in this particular business plan. Secondly is your company description, and this is described really well as the big idea statement. It introduces your business, it introduces what your business does, and it introduces why this particular business matters, what it is you're doing that matters so much. It's where you can communicate really concisely the idea or the philosophy, or the bigger picture behind why you do what you do. If it's around about health and well-being, if it's about Indigenous engagement, if it's about affirmative action in workplaces, if you've got a particular philosophy behind you, that's where you'll introduce this one. Then there's the problem. What is it that your business overcomes for people? If the problem is, say, for instance, the process of getting water trucks to rural communities is too expensive and too difficult, this is where you're stating that. It's the process of getting water trucks into regional and rural communities is too expensive and too difficult to do, and we're addressing that. You don't have to actually state how you're solving the problem yet. That's in the next section. This is just stating what the problem is, because all businesses are built around the idea that there's some problem that has to be solved. There's some issue that someone has. You often might have heard this as a pain point. What is the pain point that your business is trying to address? Then we highlight the solution, how your particular product or your particular service addresses that problem and then solves it. So whether you have a system for getting water to remote and regional communities, or whether you have a way of distilling a particular essential oil that maintains the majority of the nutritional ingredients that are in the original food, that kind of stuff is where you say, yes, we do this because we have a way of doing this that's better than anyone else. But then we look at, is there a market for what you do in section 5? How big is the total size of the market that you're hoping to reach with your particular problem-solving idea? And is that market growing? Is it getting bigger or is it getting smaller? Is it getting more, so you could say if you're trying to sell to somewhere like India, that's an emerging market. So you can say that market is growing, and by how much? Well, that's where you go, well, we know that the market for high value, high nutrients, nutritional supplements is growing by approximately 22% per year as that particular market becomes more wealthy and the middle class is growing. You have that information behind you. And then you go, well, is that market big enough and growing enough for people who want to invest in your business or people who want to align with your business to get a little bit motivated by? Are they excited about the growth potential? If they want to invest in your business, can they picture how that investment may play out? Then you also look at, have there been any notable exits from similar business to yours in that same sort of space? So you go, hey, we're aware of this particular business who did this thing that's kind of similar to what we do, and they've actually exited it. So that gives us an idea that that market's no longer being served by them. So we've got a market we can go for. It's not about making the market look worse by saying that people are not serving it anymore. You're actually saying, actually, the market is now less competitive. That's why we're striking now. And now we look at the product, how you actually solve that problem. So we're looking at your products and your services and what they are specifically and how they address the problem that's in that market. So if the market's there and saying, we cannot get water trucks in our communities, this is where you detail what your process is. Now, you're not giving away trade secrets. You're not giving away formulas. You're not giving away patented processes. All you're doing is saying, we have a process to do this. And this is basically what the process produces. So you're not going too defined. You're not giving away every little secret you've got about how you price it the way you price it, or how you produce that thing the way you produce it. You're just simply saying that I have this solution to the problem. And here's a roundabout sort of description of how we're able to produce this ahead of others. Now we look at how you're going to make the money. Will you make money, and how do you make money? Now, in the days of venture funded startups, we've learned that you don't always have to produce that money straight away. It's not every investor is looking necessarily what's going to make money right here, right now, as soon as they invest. Some smaller investors certainly will be like that. But if you look at something like Uber, Uber has not made a profit since it started. In fact, it is completely funded by venture capital. It's not making any money. It hasn't made it. It's sunk literally billions and billions of dollars into this thing, and it still hasn't run a profit. So the idea behind there, though, is that these investors are in it for the potential profits and growth that will come in the future. A lot of that's based upon, say, for instance, the idea that Uber has a platform to drive automated cars. So whilst they're paying a lot of drivers right now, eventually that platform will be able to be driver free. And therefore the biggest cost of Uber, which is the driver, then is removed from it. So then the revenue model is in 10 years' time, we will have a driver-free experience that will be able to produce wild profits. That's what the investors are looking at right now. In here, you're also looking at how you're pricing your product and service. So you can give ranges of how much you would cost out to, say, for instance, a 50-gram packet of a nutrient superfood, or how you would price a 1-hour session of your particular business coaching service. And how does that compare with others who are doing things in the same market? So if you're up against international competitors, say, for instance, in the US or Europe, how do you produce it that's actually going to be a lot cheaper than them? Or are you coming into the market as a premium product, premiumly packaged, and at a premium price? Based on that then, how do you see this playing out over the next 5 years? So your revenue and your pricing, which then drives what your potential revenue is going to be, how do you see that performing in the next 5-10 years? In Uber's case, they see this in the next 5 years that they'll certainly be in the automated driverless car market. They're not producing a car, but they're looking at producing the system by which people order those driverless cars to come and pick them up. The same way they do with Uber, just a driverless system. So what is your revenue projections for that next 5 years? Then the operating model is those clever little ways that you're going to deliver that revenue by managing your costs from going too over the top, being efficient so you find the cost savings all the time, and getting that point where you know, okay, I get to 1,000 customers and I need to get it to 5,000 to meet my revenue projections. How do I manage to scale it up and keep the costs under some kind of control? So where you can show that is a really massively important way that an investor can see that you really do have the potential to reach those revenue targets in 5 years, simply because you've worked out how you're going to get there and what the processes and obstacles you're going to come up with. When you have to advertise more, your costs go up. How do you scale it up without the advertising scaling up infinitely? How do you add an extra 1,000 customers without it costing you 1,000 times more just in marketing? Then your competitive analysis. This is a pretty obvious one when you think about it. You wouldn't generally get into business if you didn't know what the competitive environment already was, who those competitors are, what they're good at, what they're not so good at, how they do what they do, how you compare to what they do, and how the way they do what they do and the prices they charge at and the strengths and weaknesses they have, how that compares with you and how that actually is an advantage to you, that you've got a production process or you've got a training process or you've got a way of people engaging you that makes you highly competitive with them, or even the fact that you skip competing with them and you're in a whole new area that sits above or beyond the kind of things that they're serving. This is really important because, you know, you may think, oh, I'm just looking ahead. I don't look behind me at my competitors, but I can guarantee your competitors are looking at you. So you definitely want to be making sure you have some kind of idea the competitive environment you're in. As we get further down the plan, we look at the definition of who your customer is. There's whole workshops just around this, that idea of a customer persona. Who is the person you're aiming for? Is that a CEO of a Fortune 500 company? Or is it a 25-year-old young woman just coming out of university, going into her first big career move, and she needs further educational opportunities? What is the demographic of the person you're selling to, or the organization that you're selling to? And what is the problem that they have that would urge them to take action by purchasing with you? What is the thing that they're facing that would drive them to come to you to solve that problem for them? And when it comes to customer acquisition, how are you looking at getting customers on board? This, when it's a service-based industry, is one of the most important questions you need to ask yourself is, how are you going to attract and acquire those customers? What channels are you going to use? Are you going to use, walking up and knocking on their doors? Are you going to send them a letter? Are you going to email them? Are you using paid ads, say on television, radio? Are you using SEO on your website? Are you optimizing your website to attract more search results? Or are you paying for Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, or TikTok ads if that's where your customer is? And then of each of those channels that you're using as a way to find those customers, how much are they going to cost? At least down to how much do you believe they're going to cost? So this takes a little bit of research. It may look at you going to have to go, well, I know roughly to reach about 20,000 people in the greater Cairns region, it's going to cost me X amount. So if I want to expand that out of Cairns into Townsville and Mackay and Rockhampton and maybe even Darwin and Geraldton and Port Hedland, then I have to times that by X amount, which will get me to a cost of this. So once you know that information, you whack it down here, and that's part of your plan to attract new customers to your particular business. And then we're looking at where you're at. What's the traction you've had so far? Is this a business that you've already got underway as a sole trader, perhaps? So you've already got a few customers you've been able to test it out with. You've got a working product you don't have to do any more testing on. Or are you still about a quarter of the way into developing your product or service, and now you're looking for someone to partner with you, or you're looking for investors to come in and help you to finish that off? So the traction you've already got shows that you've at least gone beyond the I've got an idea into the I've started developing that idea. For services, that could mean you've got something you can show on paper or in a presentation. For a product, it could mean here's the demo, here's the prototype of that particular product. Here, try this, see how this is for size. And then our final three in the business plan are who your management team is. Now, quite often it's just you if you're a sole trader. That's okay, but you still need to give yourself an idea of a title and position in your business, what your background is. any skills you've picked up along the way that adds to a little bit of, I guess, credibility for why someone should trust you with their money to invest, and what makes you uniquely qualified to drive the company forward. So you're not asking for someone to come in as a CEO or a co-CEO. You're asking for them to invest, or you're asking the bank for a loan. You're not asking them to run the business for you or even to become part of your team. You just need to be able to show them that you have a background and you have a track record that at least gives some kind of idea of why you should be trusted with that investment, or trusted with a partnership, or trusted with someone coming on to even work for you. Sometimes a business plan can be a great tool to attract the right people to join into your business. This is then the same for if you've got a team. So if you're that kind of business that's got more than just you and your wife, it could mean that you've also got employees, you've got a supervisor, you've got a manager, you've got an accounts person. Then highlight who these people are, what their backgrounds are, especially if they're a financial person. Because if you put in there, oh yes, I've got an accounts person and they are a certified practicing accountant, the CPA, that immediately gives an idea that there is not just a skill in your workplace, but a standardized skill. And that certainly puts a lot of relief into an investor's or a bank's view of how you're running your business. Then we look at the funding. So if you are looking for funding, or even if you're providing that funding yourself, what is the funding you need to meet the next goal of your business? Milestones, just little goals on the way to your big goal. So the idea of how much is needed to get it to that point? How much is needed to get your product from a prototype into a production? How much is needed to get your service-based business from a really great idea to actually operating out of a shared office space? What, in your terms, are these investors going to get for their investment? So that's where you really want to think about, if they are buying, if they're adding $100,000, which may be 10% of your business, what's the return they can expect to get out of that? Or what is, like, not the long-term return, do they get a seat on your board? That kind of thing. So you're offering this percentage of your company, or this seat on your board, or this position in your company if they're willing to invest this amount of money. And then, of course, letting them know how you're going to use the money once it comes in. That's ultimately important. So many misappropriated funds in government and large organizations come because this wasn't necessarily adhered to. $1 million came in and $1 million went out and nothing's changed. So you want to try and avoid that altogether. Then, of course, your financials. This is ultimately what the bean counters are going to be most interested in when it comes to a decision that's made upon coming into your business or investing in your business. What are your costs? How much does it cost you to acquire each customer? How much is your marketing cost? How much does it cost to produce each item that you're trying to put out there? Or in the terms of a service, how much does it cost you to turn up to that meeting to secure that contract? If you have a really good idea about what that is, it shows that you've got a very good idea about what's already happening in your business. That has a ton of confidence when it comes to how you're going to operate moving forward. If I know, for instance, that for one of my clients to start spending $3,500 a month with me as a Facebook advertising client, that it costs me approximately $1,500 to attract that particular customer in, then I know that at least I've got, another $2,000 or more of return that I'm getting for them in the first month. But if it doesn't cost me $1,500 to keep them engaged, if it maybe only costs me a coffee and a croissant once a month to keep them, I then know that the cost of me being able to do that is an hour of my time at X amount per hour, plus the cost of a coffee and a croissant to sit down and meet with them and keep them engaged. Then I go, well, the cost of retention of that customer is basically a coffee and a croissant, but the cost of attracting them is about $1,500 plus probably a coffee and a croissant as well on top of that. So having a really good idea of what these things are, and this gets you out of the thinking of the creative about how you want to build your business and have an idea. And so many business owners are so creative, and gets you into the financial mindset. And the financial mindset isn't about scarcity, isn't about, oh, where does the money come from? It's all about, okay, I've got to be real here. I like to go out to these networking functions, but every time I go to it, it costs me $75. What am I getting out of each one of those networking functions that pays me back that $75, not once, but maybe 4 times over? Each function is costing me $75. What am I getting out of that? Is that part of my cost of attracting new customers? So it's really looking at the things you do that you've assumed are always just part of doing business and actually accounting for them like they really are part of doing business. The old kind of business plan was very formal, very long, had a lot of text in it, and it was over 50 pages usually. That's what the bank usually wanted you to produce. It's a very different world today. Now we're using very everyday language. 12 to 15 pages tops. You don't need to go beyond that. That's a massive relief because not everyone's a writer, and certainly not all of us want to spend our entire weekend writing a massive ebook of 50 plus pages. It's absolutely insane what business plans used to be. And the fact is, the longer the business plan, the less chance that any investors are going to have to read it. They'll probably just go to the executive summary and skip the rest. And they may read 20 or 30 of these a week. So your executive summary has to be really good, or at least the format of your business plan has to be really simple for them to follow, but it still answers all their questions along the way as clearly and as concisely as possible. And leave a bit of room for some images and some stats maybe to break up that raw text, because it gives you the ability to be able to communicate on so much more of an angle than just paralysis by analysis and death by statistics. It's not really what you want to do. It's the same way that I often talk in these webinars about death by PowerPoint. This is the probably biggest death by PowerPoint presentation I've ever done. It's got so much information in it because in this case, there's information that's actually going to help make you money and help you attract investors or help you to attract that loan you need to get from the Commonwealth Bank, for example, to be able to do things you want to do with your business in the future. And the other thing is too, I'm planning for you to actually want to watch this again on YouTube. So I have a lot more on-screen information on there rather than just the verbal stuff I'm coming across, because this is designed for you to use in the future. And it'll be available, like I said earlier, on Business Station's YouTube channel for you to watch again and again and again if you want to. And even send you, if you really, really want me to, send you these slides and some of the examples we're going to see shortly too of some really great business plans. So the question is, yes, I know I want to do this business plan, but how do I start doing a business plan? You start by doing your research. You need to know the facts about your business, the market you're going into, and the potential you have to actually engage with that market. If you're trying to simply, get away with, as few facts and figures as possible, you're going to fail every time. You really need to nail that research and know where you're looking. We've actually got a competitor research. I think it's on Monday I'm doing that, is a webinar on competitor research. So that might be a good place to start, to find out where do you find this research. I'll tell you one place that's really great to start with all this kind of research. Google. Google is the best place to start from because the information about almost everything on the planet is out there. Do a brief outline first. Don't feel like you have to sit down there with a Microsoft Word document open in front of you and a flashing cursor saying, what do I start with? Just do it on sticky notes or a whiteboard or a chalkboard or a little cards over a table and write down just the outline of where you're going to go. Be really messy first and then start to refine it into that format. So even if you're answering the questions of each part of the business plan format in sticky notes or on cue cards or on a whiteboard, get the ideas out first. You don't have to organize them. One of the great problems that comes with writing is that people think they have to be able to sit down and magically know what to write and how to put it all together. That's not how authors write. It's not even how technical writers write. The idea is you have to work out what the ideas are you want to put down first. That's one step. Then you can step away for a day or two and just leave it at that. Then you come back at the next stage and you go, now I'm going to start getting the format out. Here's my format of how I'm going to deliver that information. But you don't yet have to deliver that information into that format. You've just got the format. Step 3 may be where you come back and go, now I'm going to organize all the goals and objectives in point 3 here into something that fits into that format. But you still don't have to have got it right at that point. You could be at step 5, 6, 7, or 10 before you actually got the version of your business plan that you go, now I've refined this. Now I've got it at a point where it looks really good. It's a problem that most essay writers and assignment writers in university and even high school get to, is they try to sit down and cram the whole process into this one couple of hours where they cram in, and the quality just isn't there because it takes time to do your research. It takes time to work out what your basic ideas are. It takes time to organize those ideas into a cohesive format. And it takes time to edit it and refine it and get it right until finally you've got it. Please try not to start with a design first. Start with the ideas first. The design can come later. We've got some great ideas for designs coming up, in fact, of some of those business plans that are really, really good. And I can send you these too via email. I've got everyone on here, so I'll be able to see who it is that I'll be sending it to. But the idea of your business plan being, now hopefully this is going to show. Just tell me if you can see the Kulina business plan on your desktop right now. I'm hoping you can. Julia says, yes, thank you very much. Okay, so this is an example of a dummy business plan for somebody who's talking about technology in the kitchen. So you cover the page, looks pretty attractive. There's no mistaking that it's you. A table of contents. Now notice how they've kept it very much to brand. They haven't pretended to be something they're not. It's very much all a part of their brand. Breaking down what pages everything is on. Notice how on page 4, it starts the company overview and all the information around it. They've broken it down to sections, so it's really easy to digest it. If I wanted to jump just to the investment opportunity, I can jump straight to page 17. I don't have to read through the whole thing to get there. Remembering that investors and banks read through potentially dozens of these each week. So you want to make it easy for them to get to the information that counts. The executive summary in this case is really nice and short. They haven't gone into a great deal of detail. In fact, they've used the white space to add in a really beautiful presentation of what their mission or vision is. They continue on, yes, with a bit of text there, but they break it up with some ideas in statistics and pie charts and bar charts and ring charts. They continue then with the executive summary by going to what the team looks like. Add photos of your team if you can. It adds a little bit more of an emotional connection. Not that you're looking for people to connect with you emotionally. You're just looking at them being able to connect with you in some way. Having photos will stand out above those who don't have photos. People are still emotional creatures, whether they are decision makers in banks or in venture capital firms. Yes, the figures are everything to them, but if 15 people come up with the same figures, at some point when they need to narrow down who's going to be the best opportunity, it'll come down to a hunch that they'll have. And quite often that's an emotional decision they make. Your company overview can be not just presented in words, but in charts like this. I think this is fantastic. So you can see, you know, the difference in how many watts a particular appliance will use. Using statistics, outlining the points about your company and how you address what you're doing with little icons and stuff just makes it so much easier to consume this. I can keep going on this one. I'll jump over to another one. This is for an online service for business. Again, bright. It's all about them. They've included all of their colors and their branding. They've stayed true to who they are. They're not trying to be anything they're not. Breaking up those sections into subsections. Having their executive summary, this time with a picture of their website on there because it is a website that they're actually trying to attract investment into. Getting to the point really early in the executive overview, how much money they're looking for. A bit more of an overview of the founders. They've gone a lot less people in there. So just looking at, you know, who the main founders are, who the main people involved are, and then breaking it down to some of the other people who are part of that. Looking at the investment and opportunity as less of just words on a paper, but actually graphically represented so it really stands out. The person who's skimming over this can go, yep, they want $850,000 and this is how they're going to use that $850,000. As you keep going, they repeat it, how much they need. This is specifically written to attract investors or attract a bank loan. Using images along the way really paints the picture that you know who you are, you know what your business is, and you know how you want to deliver the service that you want to deliver. Jumping over now to this one called Orca, is a software service. So again, keeping the branding intact, staying true to who they are in their colors, making sure it looks like something which they would actually be delivering. Unfortunately, my PDF hasn't quite laid this out the way it really should be. But you can see it's a very similar kind of process, making it very clear who the people of the company are, how much you're looking to attract in investment, and then showing very clear ideas. Now, these guys haven't included photos in here. So you probably notice that this one actually looks a little more cluttered and a little messier than what the others do, because there's just not as much graphic going on, apart from the formatting being quite out as well. I might try to open this one in something which is actually going to work a little bit better. Let me just, nope, out you go. Download. Now try and open this one up in actual Adobe Acrobat. I think it might show a little bit better. No, it's actually a PowerPoint presentation. So I'll bring that up as well. All right, you should be able to see this one in here. So it's going to look a lot better. It's going to look a lot more. Yep, that's looking better. Just let me know if you can't see this new presentation. But still, with a presentation, they've chosen to go down a very different path. They got some bar charts and ring charts. So this one feels like it's a lot more, I guess, formal than the others, but it shows you that depending on the kind of business you've got, the layout of your particular business plan could look very different. A lot of people that I present this to often really resonate with this first one. They say the colors are nice, it looks fun and a little bit flirty, but it's also painting a picture of the home, of the sort of problem they're trying to, get smart technology to save power costs in the kitchen. That's what they're all about. So they need to make that, which is a very nerdy subject, seem a little bit more fun and flirty with the potential customers they may have. For Live, Shop, Buy, this is all about an e-commerce property. So they want to make sure it's very clear that they're all about being a shop. Photos of shops on the main street harks back to the kind of idea that, that they are a real business that even though it's not on the high street of town, it's still a very, very legitimate and very useful service that people have no matter where they're located. Trying to show what their website looks like is a really great, because they've literally got a website as their business as opposed to a shop front or an idea. So when you get down to that point, that's where you're starting to see that there is a lot of great examples out there of business plans. I'll send those through to you as well. All I need you to do is to make sure that you can get in touch with me via these things. So jot down Dante@Tldr.com.au. You can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook very, very easily as well. And I'll transfer them to you there. So you can have an idea of, I guess, of what those particular formats look like and use those as a way of perhaps looking at how your format is. There's also a bunch of services, no matter where you are, that can help you with identifying your business plan and writing it. If you do not feel like this is something you can do all by yourself, there are services out there that do it in various places. So Queensland, WA and Northern Territory, there's business enterprise centres who do offer some free funded services that allow you to see them about writing your business plan. So they can do that. I know in the Darwin market and Alice Springs, there is the Business Enterprise NT. I know that business enterprise centres are throughout Perth as well, and in Southeast and North Queensland as well. You've got several of those. Just look for help with a business plan. Often you'll find there's lots of templates you can use that are free. They'll help you to do it. There's even templates, I believe, in Canva that'll allow you to do it in a very graphical way. Just beware of making it a little bit too graphical. You don't want it to seem like a toy. You want this thing to be looked at quite seriously by people who are presenting these for you. So you want to be presenting it to people who are looking at you as a legitimate kind of service or a legitimate kind of business that's going to be very well used, and that they will be making a very, very good decision about connecting with you. I'll probably open up now if you've got any questions before we end, because as we've had a lot less people in this one than I was planning on, I've kind of come up very, very early on this one. So if you've got a specific question, whack it in the chat and hopefully I'll be able to answer that for you. But if not, you can always send me a message through Dante@Tldr.com.au. The modern format is much easier to read. Thank you, Julia. It's way, way easier to deal with. The old business model canvas idea produces an over-the-top document that nobody really wants to read. And let's face it, most of us are a small to medium business anyway, so we're not attracting the billions of dollars of investment. We're attracting the thousands and the tens of thousands and the hundreds of thousands when it comes to investment. So it's not expected that we go into quite that same level of detail. That said, different kind of investors, different kind of investment companies and banks may have the specific details they want to get from you. So as you approach them, they'll give you the basic outline of what it is they're after. You can get some free services that will help you. There's some paid services as well that help you do that too. Depending on how big you are, it's worth trying to get the easiest possible way out of a business plan as you can, rather than sitting down and thinking this is a massive thing that requires a university degree or a master's degree to be able to do. I've written several business plans on my own and for others, and they're not the hardest thing as long as you've done that research up front. So you know what your product is, know who your product's aimed at, know how much it's going to work. This is going to be great. So I know Stephanie got into this a little bit late. So Stephanie, you can watch this one by about Tuesday. It should be available on Business Station's YouTube channel. Meantime, though, I can happily send through these slides to you. So just drop me an email. I'll send them back to you. Really good comment here from Caillou asking if we missed, there's a Facebook one the other day that I did. That's also going to be on the YouTube channel. If it's not already, it will be. So those ones will be. Anything that's got that sort of C19 marker on the webinar as part of the C19 Biz Booster series. And they're the free ones that are available through the YouTube channel when they get onto them. It can take them a few days to get it there. Julia's saying, a sole trader, 4 years in, wanting to expand through purchase of another business. I need to do a detailed plan. Is there any training on the detailed internal plan? Wow, didn't really think about that, but I suppose there is. Think about it as, instead of you trying to, it's almost exactly the same as the external plan, except you flip it on its head and say, these are the internal goals. These are the internal revenue raising goals. This is how I'm planning to make this extra business that I'm buying pay for itself. Here's the expectations I have. So I don't have a specific training around that, but Startup Institute does have that sort of stuff that I can pull in. So yeah, if there's some demand for it, I might be able to pull that out maybe September, October for you. Meantime, thank you so much for taking some time out on your Friday afternoon. It's probably the hardest time of the week to try and learn. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us. And I hope to see you next week as we do. I've got another 4 of these things next week. So I better get to writing in a hurry. Have a great day and a great weekend.